lots of us are thinking about it. So I guess the big question is, why write books?
It's absolutely the best question to start with, because unless you have a really clear idea of what it is you want to do, what's the outcome for you, then it's a huge hill to climb. It's a lot of effort. Why would you do it? I was interviewing David Meerman Scott for the podcast a couple of weeks back, and he's the guy who wrote the now classic New Rules of Marketing and PR. And he said writing a book gives you an unfair advantage. What do you mean? What do you mean by that? And he said, well, it's like getting paid to do your marketing. And I have to say, I loved that. I'm going to steal that idea. This idea that when you issue a book, when you share your story in whatever form it is, that you're somehow getting some sort of commercial return is really cool. So I think there's something I want to say about a book and why. And that's partly that you can see all the main reasons you'd want to do it. Firstly, there's the satisfaction of seeing something, touching something in your hands. And that's absolutely fine. And that's really important. You can see the reason where you would want to inspire and support your community. And Penny Power wrote a really powerful personal memoir about her mental health and well-being. It's called Business is Personal. And so actually a memoir can be an inspiration for your community. But I think we also need to bear in mind that it has a primary business function. There's a real business case for writing a book. And I think thinking about your FP stories, your financial planners stories in Octo, what's happening in Octo at the moment is really significant, I think. And over the weekend, there was that the report from the FCA, the remind me what it was called. I can't remember the terribly long title it had. It was.
Yes, I know what you mean. The Financial Conduct Authority. Yeah, they're talking about the advice market and stuff. And I guess the most contentious point that came out was about this thing about ongoing fees and value.
I think it was John Lappin wrote that piece. So one of the things I wanted to say was it's great to be here and sharing some thoughts with Octo, but you're already doing a ton of really good work. So Alan Smith's lead on FP stories, that is the answer to John Lappin's story, to how do we demonstrate our value. One of the real reasons for writing a book is to demonstrate or showcase your expertise, the process that you have, but also to persuade people. I think too much we're sucked into this idea that social media, memes, short, tweets, stuff like that is what people want. It's what Seth Godin calls interruption marketing. We're constantly trying to interrupt people as they're scrolling through their feeds. And writing a book is a different mechanism. And I think it's a really powerful mechanism, because what happens when you write a book, if you do it the right way, is that you actually are attracting your ideal clients, the people that you want to serve. Because when you write a book, it goes on Amazon or some other platform. Perhaps you put it as an electronic form on Kindle. You might do an audiobook, and audiobooks, by the way, are one of the biggest and fastest growing parts of the publishing community. So don't forget considering an audiobook. I was pleased to hear that the head of GAP's leadership development fell asleep listening to my words on a jumbo jet coming by. I don't know whether that was a good thing or a bad thing, but he did have the guts to tell me that he'd fallen asleep to my words, but he wanted to learn more. So I think one of the things is writing a book, long form content. Firstly, the structure of the book will guide someone through a way of thinking, a way of seeing the world that perhaps they hadn't thought of before. So in a book, in a piece of long form content, you're doing two major things. You're actually attracting the people to you and filtering out everybody else. You're attracting the people that you want by writing in a way and telling stories and sharing evidence, creating an argument through your words that persuades them, that takes them on that journey. And then by the time they get to the end of the book, perhaps even before they finished, they want to ring you. They want to get in touch. So it's a very persuasive mechanism. I don't know anybody who's persuaded by a meme or an Instagram post or an Insta story or something like that. I do some of that stuff. I do it on LinkedIn, but mainly so that when people are reading my stuff and they think, who is this Sonsino guy? They go out to YouTube or iTunes and they find me everywhere. So a book allows you to create a vast amount of content and be everywhere now. So that's one of the other advantages of writing a book, is it creates and actually replaces a lot of the content marketing that you might do. I mean, for me, content marketing is the hamster wheel of death. What I really urge people to do is not to create 1,000 random pieces of content, but to write a book, a strategically focused book to answer the biggest questions that your clients have, the biggest question that your best clients have, and answer it in a book. And then that gives you a whole load of themes and articles and podcasts and maybe even videos to put on your social platforms, so that when people Google you, as Google you they will, they find you and they find a part of your core message. And that also is a why you should write a book, because when people find you and are attracted to you, it's that breadcrumb trail back to your website or to your phone. That, I think, is so much more persuasive than shoving your material down people's throats. The ability to be found by influencers who want to find other thought leaders in your area. And, you know, if you are in the Spears 500, or if you aspire to be in the Spears 500, you should be thinking about, how can I persuade people that I am a thought leader, that I am a trusted advisor? Is this making any kind of sense? It's about being creating a magnet that attracts people to you, rather than trying to force your message down people's throats.
So in effect, then, you're talking about sort of pull marketing rather than push marketing.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So a magnet of intellectual property that's helpful, showcases you as an individual is what you're saying.
Absolutely. And one of the things that I would urge people to do is marshal that IP, marshal the knowledge that you have in service of the audience. And sometimes we foul up on that. And I have. Jacqueline Moore, my wife, and I fouled up big time. We wrote a book called Leadership Unplugged. Do you remember you're old enough to remember MTV Unplugged, I think. The idea of go back to the acoustics and let the tune speak for itself. So we wrote Leadership Unplugged as a way of saying, let's get, my day job is teaching leadership at London Business School, as you kindly said, and other places too. And I was getting a bit confused and a bit put off by all the masses of leadership books that are out there, saying, let's get back to some real simple things. It's about conversation, it's about relationships, emotional intelligence, all of that sort of stuff. But I wrote it for my colleagues in the business school. I was trying to show off, if I'm honest with you. Right. And it was a huge mistake, and it's a massive piece of work. It's still the best thing we ever did. And till I die, I shall be so grateful to Harvard. Harvard Business Publishing reviewed it and said, learned yet practical. And I'm happy now. I can go to the sky and be. So if this was a theatre show, it would be the 3 words hanging outside, the review, learned yet practical. Wonderful feedback. But my mother, my best friends, they just can't get into this because it's written for other academics. Yeah. So don't write for your peers. Don't write for the community that you're in. Write for the community that you serve. That is absolutely number one. And I think one of the things that I very quickly learned was to write in that conversational style. When you finally get to it, you are writing a conversation. If your words are in their head, and it's a very tactile thing, isn't it? A book, somebody's holding your work, whether it's on a Kindle or they're hearing your words in their ears. It's a very intimate experience. And actually, people are shutting out all the other things, that the stream of stuff that's happening, to concentrate on what you say. So why not speak in a conversational voice? And that might lead later on to a conversation about how to create a book, because it is possibly the largest piece of content that you'll ever create. So one of the tips we give, and we'll get onto that later, I'm sure, is speak it out, record it rather than sit and... There's something odd that happens to people when they think, I've got to write a lot of text or something. they start to write and sound very formal and very pompous, when actually the best persuasion is verbal and interactive in some ways, as this is. So I think that to me is a big message. Write to solve your best client's biggest problem. Write for them and them alone.